Welcome to the Business Spotlight, brought to you by 123 Internet Group. Hear from industry leaders, businesses and organisations about the topics that matter the most. Business Spotlight, the impact of COVID-19.
So thanks for tuning in. My name's Scott from 123 Internet Group. Really pleased today to be with Ryan from Sprout Social. Hi, Ryan.
Hey, Scott, how are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Great to catch up. Been a long time, obviously since our days over in Chicago and so on, but really excited to sort of talk to you today about sort of the dreaded COVID, what you've been doing through the pandemic and so on at Sprout Social, and also yourself. So yeah, thanks for joining us. Do you want to kickstart just by sort of introducing yourself, a little bit of background as well, if that's okay?
Sure, would love to. Appreciate the time. My name is Ryan Barretto. I lead operations here at Sprout Social. I'm the president of the company. I've been with the company 4.5 years. Prior to that, spent about 10 years at Salesforce.com in a variety of sales leadership roles. Originally from Canada, and then moved to Chicago in 2012 to help open the Salesforce office, and then joined the Sprout team in 2016.
Brilliant. And obviously, yeah, the recent sort of progression with yourself in the role as well. It's exciting times. Give me a little bit of background. I mean, how has that all come about?
Yeah, so it's just been a fantastic journey being at Sprout. You know, my last job at Salesforce was leading global sales for Pardot, the marketing automation solution that Salesforce had acquired. And what I realized then is that I really loved selling to marketers and working with marketers. I had actually started my career in marketing, so it was a little bit of full circle. And I realized that social was something that was an unsolved problem. And so when I had the chance to meet Justin Howard, the CEO of Sprout, I just saw this huge market opportunity, and I saw a company that cared deeply about their employees and customers. And I realized that it was too good an opportunity to not try and be a part of. And so for the last 4.5 years, we've done a lot as an organization. We've gone from 200 employees to 700 plus employees, from sub $30 million in run rate to well over $100 million in run rate, and took the company public in 2019. So it's just been this journey together. And along the way, I've just had a great opportunity to contribute not just to sales, but to customer success and marketing and the overall operations of the business. So this is kind of just the next evolution in how we grow as a company. And I'm super lucky and fortunate to be in this position.
No, definitely exciting time. I would say we've been obviously long-standing sort of partners with you guys. We joined you right in the early days, sort of founder members. I mean, we're one of the few sort of platinum sort of members, partner agencies here in the UK. You guys have got agencies all around the world, the world that you support. I know that. But here in the UK, we've been really fortunate to deal with you for quite a long time. Even before you had the island-based office as well. So for us, we've seen this growth kind of firsthand as well. We've seen the platform kind of, grow, and new tools, new platforms come online. And, for us, our social team sort of live, breathe and eat sort of social media on a daily basis. And the platform forms the pivotal point of that, really. I mean, obviously, as you're aware, we're a sort of digital marketing company, so we're now full service. So certainly haven't had the quickest growth than yourselves, but we're sort of a 20-strong agency now, predominantly based out of Milton Keynes. But we're quite unique in the fact we have design, development, and social media all in-house. So we are really the kind of first port of call for companies, especially companies through the pandemic recently that have been launching new brands, going online for the first time, needing that support, and we've been able to handhold them through the whole journey. So coming on to the pandemic, I mean, this for us kind of takes us back to February time, roughly, when it sort of broke the news. We had lots of conversations with our team about it. And in the early days, I'll be honest, it seemed a kind of something that would kind of come in and go very quickly. Here we are almost a year later, very much still impacting the globe, in almost every aspect. When did it first sort of appear on your radar? Was it just from stateside? Was it from Ireland? How did that all come about?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that our European team, our team, most of which is in Dublin, were the starting point for how serious this was going to be. Obviously, the news was out there, but I think the US was well known as someone who reacted fairly slowly to everything happening. And so when we saw everything happening in Ireland and in Europe, and hearing from leaders like Gerard, who runs our office out there, it became very apparent that this was going to be real and something we all needed to deal with. And in the States at that point, there was a lot of conversation and concern. We were leaning into flexibility and work from home for those that were not comfortable coming to work on public transit, which totally made sense. But our EMEA team was the first to be working from home. And so having that leadership from someone like Gerard, which was both a calming presence for the team, but also just an optimistic approach, was helpful. But yeah, it was the early days, and we started to learn a lot from that team on how they made that transition into working from home and what we needed to think about besides just the operational aspect, but culturally, how to keep the teams engaged.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've sort of seen this will be our third lockdown officially now, obviously here in the UK, and we've been through these sort of lockdown periods where we had to pull our whole team away from the office. We took much a similar approach to yourself in that if anybody didn't feel comfortable coming to the office, regardless whether it's lockdown, they could work from home. We have our secure VPNs. We've been using Zoom probably for 3-4 years because we've been in touch with you guys. So it's been fantastic. Obviously, we already had these things in play. So our transition was fairly straightforward. We moved people obviously home, made sure that they had the connectivity they needed and all the tools. The great thing about Sprout is that it obviously is cloud-based. So much like a lot of our other tools, they could work in the normal way. With our phone system, again, connecting everybody to each other, using Zoom on a daily basis and Teams and so on, we probably didn't really see much change in terms of our day-to-day operations and the support for our clients. We've heard of stories from law firms and other firms where that transition was a little bit more difficult. Example I can give is sort of the local schools here as well. They've only just kind of moved to Zoom meetings for teachers and things like that. And it's a bit of that digital transformation. Some companies have been really fast tracked into this, I think now, haven't they? And I think it's hopefully for the better. You've always had sort of remote working, I think, at Sprout, haven't you? Back from the early days when you launched. For you, this was obviously difficult, but fairly easy to embrace. For companies that have never done this before, that must have been a bit bewildering, I guess.
Yeah, no, you're right. And, I think we were fortunate, similar to yourself and your team, in that we did have some folks that were working from home. We have folks that are remote today. We've got offices like the office in Dublin and some folks in London and in Singapore and Australia and Seattle. So we had this idea that not everybody is in headquarters in Chicago. And the product, as you mentioned, cloud-based, since the very beginning, that's how we deliver the product, right? We have a free trial. Customers can get access to it wherever they are. We spend time with them, but oftentimes they self-serve, right? And so that has definitely been an advantage for us. But being forced into work from home overnight was challenging, especially when you start to think about a lot of the demographic of our people are very young. They're sharing their flats with a bunch of roommates. Not really conducive for a great working environment. And then there's people like me and you who have kids at home that were pretty quickly working or going to school from home and trying to figure out Zoom. So a lot of that was challenging for the team. And we had to figure out pretty quickly, how do you get the folks set up in a place that they can be productive, but also understanding that you need to lead with empathy and flexibility, right? No one planned for this. This is a new situation and everyone's just trying to do their best. So yeah, I think we were better equipped than most companies, especially legacy enterprise software companies that rely on on-site meetings and implementation. But there's no shortage of distractions that everybody had to deal with.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's ongoing, isn't it? The number of calls I have even now where the door goes, the dog runs through, the kids are there in the background. It's just part of the normal activity and way of life now, isn't it? Certainly. It's interesting you mentioned, obviously, again, sort of quite a young team. Obviously, we have quite a young team here at 123. And, one thing that we wanted to support the most was their mental health, making sure that they were happy at home. Everyone's in a different situation, much like some of your team, some are sharing and things like this. So it's important for us to make sure that they had that support as well. So, we were having regular calls, we were having quizzes, we were trying to keep our culture alive and make sure that comms didn't drop. Again, having gone through the first lockdown, come back to the office and almost celebrating the fact that we're back together again, to be pulled out a couple of times since. I think my team certainly have become more aware of the importance around mental health, looking after themselves, speaking to other colleagues regularly and things like that. And we pulled some stats back, actually quite interesting, about the stats around Zoom and how many calls we've had. And not all of our calls of our clients are Zoom based naturally, but it was amazing for me in the last 12 months. We almost had 6,000 meetings take place, and it equated to about 250,000 minutes. Now, I guarantee when we break that down, a lot of that is probably our team talking to each other, but it's just interesting to see. And I think I mean, what do you do as an organization to look after your employees? I know you've won many awards for that kind of role.
Yeah, no, it's great. And what you shared in terms of just really taking great care of your employees and focusing on mental health was something that was at the forefront for us as well. We're in a fast growing business. It's very easy to put your head down and just focus in on the numbers, but we realized pretty quickly that this was just so different than anything else that we've ever seen. And ensuring that we were leading with empathy, leading with flexibility was going to be imperative to making sure that our team was healthy. I was actually really inspired by a lot of what we saw from our EMEA team and Gerard. They focused really quickly on mental health. They actually had some outside practitioners come in and do a session on mental health. They spoke a lot about the idea of making sure that you are not sitting in your office at your desk all day long and getting up and walking around and drinking water and exercising and shutting off at night. And so we did a lot of that with the team, both externally and internally. The team came up with a lot of fun games. I mean, they had the MTV version of Cribs. We're going into people's homes to actually see what was in their fridges.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it was just trying to name whose workspace was whose. So just a lot of fun around that side of it to bring some levity to the workplace. But I think at the end of the day, one of the things that we just kept reminding everyone is that we want to make sure that we are the best place to work as a company. And so we're the best employer and the best place to be a customer. And so if we can take care of those two groups, our employees and our customers, everything will work out fine. And if we can lead with empathy and flexibility on both sides, we'll be in a great spot. And it might be some rockiness during these months, but we'll get through it. And so that was a big part of it, is just the carving out time and focus and being flexible with people.
Sure. I mean, certainly, as a small business, a lot of my time was spent with the team, making sure that they were happy, that everything they needed and so on. And if people to balance, that client care as well, making sure that still remains, not impacted by the fact that your time spent obviously elsewhere. But I think, I'm really proud that, our team all pulled together. Our clients certainly, felt really supported. We released lots of documents for them, lots of help guides. Our design team actually came up with the idea of releasing, colouring activity books right in the early days, so that those parents are at home with kids sort of around them as well. And this has included myself. They had things to do, as well as the schoolwork. And that was really nice to see. It's been interesting as well with, again, we reached out to Gerard right in the early days of the pandemic and said, look, we're getting lots of clients that are being bombarded by messaging. Messaging increased hugely for retailers that were closing, hospitality sector, and those inbound messages needed to be taken care of. And they've perhaps not seen that volume before. Equally, we were given advice on the changing the tone. It wasn't about selling, it was about sort of reinforcing, care and attention to your clients and making sure that they understood if you were closed, when you might reopen and what steps you were taking. And Gerard was fantastic, and he supported us with lots of our events previously here in the UK. We run, obviously, as you know, the MK Digital Summit every year. This is the only year we haven't run it. And he's always come along, supported us, with some of the other team. It's been great to hear the insights. So when we reached out to him, I wasn't really expecting any kind of, immediate reaction, but actually straight away, he asked what our struggles were. And our clients were saying, look, we need to get on Sprout. We've not used it before. We need some help. So we offered some free trials. We got them on there. We helped them set up. And they use those tools, again, self-managed. They're able to kind of respond to their clients very, very quickly. And just to have us behind the scenes, just guiding them in the right direction, has built up a lot of rapport with them. And quite a few of those now we're supporting moving forward as active clients. But that was really good, being able to reach out to Gerard, and just say, look, what can we do? How can we work together on this? And it was fantastic to see.
Yeah, I mean, we are really just appreciative of leaders like you and organizations like 123 that stepped up in a major way during this time. And we realized that such an important part of our business, the reason that we've been able to grow like this is because of organizations like you that have supported us since the early days. And that was one of the things that we talked a lot about as an executive team as soon as this thing happened was how do we make sure that we take great care of our customers? We know that they're going to be facing exorbitant pressure right now, and it's going to be unlike anything we've ever seen before. We've created a really strong relationship and foundation with them. We want to make sure that we step up and we lead during this time as well. So we're grateful for the opportunity that people like you reached out and gave us the chance to help. But we also realize that regardless if we're a public company right now, if we do right by our customers in the short term, the long term will always look good. And so that was one piece that we just really committed to. And similar to you with just thinking about the approach, it was kind of like, how do we help our customers financially? They need support. So what can we do to support them there? We started to think about things like, do we need to help people with additional users right now or profiles where they've got a spike, they need to do something, but they don't have the financials to back it up? We want to help them right now. We know that so many of our customers, especially in the States with social injustice happening, there was concern that whatever they were communicating out didn't come across as tone deaf. So how can we help them with listening data to really understand the sentiment of their customer base and make sure that they're communicating in the appropriate way? And so we just tried to find all of these different elements where we could contribute in a positive way to our customer base. And I think it was felt by our customers, but equally internally, I think it reinforced why everybody wants to be a part of Sprout from an employee perspective.
No, definitely. I mean, we did much the same. So again, we had lots of inquiries. Digital really did boom. You had lots of retailers, hospitality in particular, moving online, some of them for the first time. And, cash flow was a barrier, for quite a few of them. So we put together a GDI scheme. We teamed up with NatWest, who we've worked with previously, and they were able to support us alongside our local Chamber of Commerce as well, to ensure that we could, give the support that these people needed. And quite a lot of it, was around advice. It was around guidance and our time and our expertise. And again, I know that's something that you do yourselves. You share a lot of content that really helps people and arms them with that information they need to know. What we actually did was make sure that from a financial point of view as well, we could help them kind of pass that initial block stage. And we launched this voucher scheme, which enabled them to claim £1,000 back towards our services. And it was just enough to help these people sort of get online for the first time, run their social media, where maybe some of their team had to be furloughed, but they still needed that activity to take place. And that was really successful. I think the biggest thing for me as well for clients that we were speaking with, and certainly new clients, is that the ones that have been really successful through this and really maintained their presence and their brand and built their loyalty further are ones that have continued to communicate. They haven't gone quiet. They haven't pulled back. Actually, they've done the opposite. They've been there to support, others. They've been in the limelight. They've been helping. They've been giving as much as they can and showing they really care. And that's the important factor, isn't it?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think it goes back to authenticity of voice, right? And to your point, this is a huge opportunity to create really valuable, longstanding relationships with your community, your customers. And people now more than ever expect that brands aren't just corporate, right? That brands actually have a personality behind them, an authentic voice, and it's an opportunity to really engage and build a relationship. And I think you're right that the brands that we saw thriving were the ones that were leaning into the conversation. They were leaning in with empathy. They were identifying ways to add more value than was expected of them. And those were the folks that were really during this hard time period building, I think, what will be long-standing relationships with their communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, social has obviously changed. The usage levels have gone through the roof. They've really spiked. I mean, we saw a massive rise in LinkedIn, on Facebook, Twitter. Most of the channels really did rise. Where have you seen the kind of the social media landscape change? Obviously, you're you're a fantastic sort of data house, more than anything else as well. You're used by not just agencies, but clients direct as well. So you must see some of these trends that have taken place. Have you got any stats of it? Can you share anything that you've kind of seen through the pandemic?
Yeah, so there's a few things that we saw. We certainly saw for the first few months a pullback on the amount of communication that was going out. And I think that was really an opportunity for brands to try and understand the sentiment within the market, to really tap into what customers were looking for. You saw a lot of messaging that was leading with empathy. And then as we started coming out of the summer, we started to see within social this idea that people are a little bit ready to move on from empathy and get back to work. And they needed to figure out how to move their businesses forward. And now they were looking for their brands, the brands that they do business with, to really lead with education, to lead with value. And so that's when we started to see an increase in the amount of communication again. But again, a shift in the focus to being, how can we add more value? How can we create content that's going to help you move your business forward? How can we create content that tells you how to evolve and pivot in this post-COVID world? And so a lot of that was happening. I think when most doors have been shut, social was one of those ones that was just really the only one that was open for most businesses. So to your point, they were leaning in, people were leaning in to engage with customers, whether it be from a marketing perspective, a sales perspective, or a customer support perspective. And we certainly saw in a lot of industries way more engagement on digital channels. And in places where you might have thought that it would have been quiet, retail, travel, hospitality, these brands were realizing that even though the amount of consumers they're interacting with was down, it was really critical during this time period to maintain communication and engagement and build relationships, so that as things changed and we come out of this, they have thriving relationships. I think the one stat that stood out for me is McKinsey's done a study, and they've found that 75% of people who are using digital channels for the first time have indicated that they will continue to use them when things return to normal. And so that's just a great beacon for what the future looks like. I think oftentimes people think, hey, this is a point in time, we're going to revert to what we did before. And the reality is that so many people now, consumers, have created habits that they expect to keep in the long term. So businesses are going to need to continue to evolve and actually lean into the social on a go forward, because that's just what their customers are going to expect.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've seen sort of businesses, global businesses where, they've always taken social very seriously in terms of one of their marketing channels, but probably that's been enhanced through this period. As you said, those channels have changed a little bit. Some of them have led with certain, products and services and industries and so on, and some work better than others. And it's that guidance piece that we try and sort of offer here at 123 Internet, that, not every channel is perfect for every client. You've got to figure out where your audience are, understand, through listening tools, what the discussions are about, what they want to talk about, and really then dive in and sort of, take part in that. And that takes time, it takes experience, and, you really need to love your own brand, know how to kind of, come into that the right way. It's interesting, obviously, Digital 2020 July global snapshot, there was a 10% rise in total social media users. Now, that doesn't sound great when you say 10%, but that's 376 million users. That's a huge number, for any industry, growing by that amount in active users is massive.
Yeah, it's 10%, to your point, sounds small until you think the fact that half the world's population is on social, and they're using social more now than ever. And you think about just the use cases, to your point, and how they've evolved. I mean, when I first got exposed to social was back in 2010, 2011 at Salesforce, when they first started doing acquisitions within this world. And if we think about what it was back then, it was really this idea of the billboard marketing, just pushing content. And we look at 2020 now, and it's not just marketing, it's how we expect to be serviced and supported by brands. It's how we expect to have a relationship on a one-to-one level at any time at the speed of social. And so that part has just been fascinating to see how even during this period, the evolution of the way that we're engaging with these tools is totally changed. And I think things like direct messaging and social commerce are going to be really interesting to see how that all plays out over the next number of years, and how that continues to be sort of the next evolution of digital first companies.
Definitely. I mean, social, certainly with the rise over the last, sort of 12 months, we've seen, it is an active channel for comms now. If you've got a complaint, if you've got a problem, if you've got an inquiry for new business, you'll tend to go through the social channel first. And you almost expect that immediate response because it's social media. If you're up at 11 o'clock at night, you expect the party to be up at 11 o'clock at night responding to you. So things like, chat bots, obviously, I think are going to play a really crucial role moving forward for those businesses that can't operate 24/7, much like ourselves. I think also, the growth in WhatsApp, for example, so many people have sort of gone through the WhatsApp sort of growth curve and so on, and using that messaging to communicate with their clients, straight to their mobile phone. And again, we're all using social media from our phones. We're walking around our houses. We're not in the office now, right? So, the rise in social media usage on mobiles obviously has really spiked. There's also obviously been a few new players on the market, obviously recently. So TikTok has exploded, obviously, through the pandemic. I say TikTok and my dog just looks at me. Sorry, we've got a new puppy. But yeah, these new platforms have really grown. And it's great to see, you've got the new kid on the block, sort of Clubhouse that's just launched as well, more conversational, less video. And, I can see a real sort of momentum forming around social media again. What's your sort of feeling on where this might lead to? I mean, Sprout's obviously, been around for a long time now, fantastic platform, not just from, as using it day to day to post content and message and so on, but also for its reporting has been key, understanding the data. Do you see Sprout being and playing more of an active part in the data and the knowledge piece?
Yeah, I definitely do. And to your point, I mean, we get excited as we see, before Snapchat and TikTok and Clubhouse, we get really excited to see how these networks are evolving, what the use cases are, what the value is for people using them, and eventually what the value will be for businesses and how they're going to need to think about harnessing all that. So that's really exciting for us to be able to see how that all evolves. When I think about just the evolution of social and the use cases, we know it started in marketing. It's gone very much so into customer experience and customer care and customer support. We're seeing that from a lot of customers today. People aren't picking up the 1-800 and calling you or emailing support they're tweeting at you. They're going to your Facebook page. And so that has definitely shaped a lot of organizations and how they're interacting with customers. Data is one of those pieces that I think is still relatively nascent for a lot of businesses. And I know you all are on the front lines educating your customers and helping them with that data. But I think the last step that we looked at when we did the Sprout Index was that less than 25% of marketers are actually using social data to inform business decisions and insights. And so we spent a lot of time building our solution and focusing on the analytics for the social properties that you own, and then the listening data to be able to tap into the true voice of not just the customer, voice of culture outside of your four walls. And so for us, what we're thinking about is how do we democratize that and make sure that we're empowering companies, agencies of all shapes and sizes to get access to that, but not just to run the data, but to make sense of it so that they can use it for their business, right? How should I be positioning competitively? Which markets should I be opening up in? What should my next marketing campaign look like? How should I evolve my product? The answers to all of that live within the social data. And that's a huge opportunity as we move forward, is helping brands and organizations really harness that power to move their businesses forward.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, a lot of decision making that we're going to take for our clients is generally based on the data. If they want to push into a new industry or launch a new service, the best thing about social is that you get that real-time reporting and you get those conversations triggered. And, we ask a lot of questions, we run polls and things like that. And it's a great way to get a real sense of the market that you want to push into, or a new industry. So again, using these tools is a great way of doing that. But you've got to be able to have value and trust in that data as well and make those decisions off the back of it. I mean, just sort of leading out sort of this conversation, I mean, let's talk about sort of the biggest challenges then that maybe you faced, obviously, during the pandemic, maybe some agencies like ourselves have faced. Can you share any sort of stories or any insights into that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest challenge coming out of this is going to be, how do you create a productive workforce where you're truly a hybrid organization. So, before most of us were in the office, but we had some remote workers that worked out, but the majority of the people were sitting in offices. During this pandemic, we've all been working from home, which we're all in the same situation, right? We're all remote. When you now go back into the office, you're still going to have a lot of people who are remote, people that used to be in an office that are not there anymore. So we're thinking a lot about how do you create a truly productive workforce in this hybrid environment. So that's one thing that we're thinking about. And we're going to be really thoughtful about the approach in which we return back to the office, but also how do we make sure that if you're working from home or working from Dublin or Chicago, that experience is great, you're engaged, you have the same voice at the table. So that's something that we've been thinking about a lot. Similar to customers, right? I think the engagement strategy is going to be very different. In our enterprise, a lot of those customers used to expect for us to get on a jet and get in front of them. I don't think they're going to let you back in their office for a very long time. So how do you create really trusting relationships, build rapport from a remote perspective on a go forward? How do you differentiate yourself when you're probably not going to see a lot of your customers for a very long time? So we're thinking about some of those things right now, and how do we make sure that we're adding more value to our customers and to our employees in this new world? I think the other piece is just most organizations have realized that if they're coming out of this thriving, they're digital first, and their business practices are going to be there for the long term. They're not going to revert back to what they were doing pre-COVID. And so how do we make sure that we can help those customers scale within this new environment? How do we make sure that we can empower them with a lot of the data that you just talked about so that they can make these business decisions? And how do we make sure that we're there to support groups like 123 and you all with the tools that we have in a place that you can continue adding value to your customers? So those are all things that we're thinking about right now, but I think it's going to be just fascinating to see how we manage this new hybrid work environment when we get back to some sense of normal.
Definitely, yeah. As I say, that sort of term normal has certainly changed over the last year, hasn't it? And I think, businesses really, they've got to embrace this new normal, what that looks like. And for those quite traditional markets, I think it's going to be quite tough for them. They're really going to have to go on their journey of transformation. Like you said, we used to have quite a few face-to-face meetings. We had very much an open door policy. We'd very regularly get clients, calling in ad hoc, stick the kettle on. We love that kind of, relationship with them because we are an extension of their own force at the end of the day, their own team. Especially when we're responding to social media messaging and things like that. We are seen as part of their extended team. And moving forward for us, in much the same way as Sprout there, it's making sure that we can continue that process. If we're not face to face, can we do that through Zoom? Can we do that in other ways and other means? It's certainly an interesting future. It's one that is quite exciting. Lots of businesses today all businesses I think have been on the journey with this. Yeah. So yeah, we're very keen to sort of learn from others, hear thoughts from other businesses that have gone through this, and really empower each other at the end of the day. Sharing that knowledge is always the best foot forward, I think. Sharing best practice between organizations can really help, small and large, alike. So brilliant. Ryan, thank you ever so much for your time today.
Thanks, guys.
Fantastic to catch up. Yeah, fantastic to catch up and speak again. And I wish you all the very best with the future, and really looking forward to see the growth for Sprout in the future.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate the opportunity and excited to hopefully see you in the near future in person as well. So
I hope so. Brilliant. Thanks, Ryan. Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. If you need advice with your digital marketing, please feel free to reach out to 123 Internet Group or visit www.123internet.agency to find out more about our services.